Welcome back to NFL Spotlight. I am your host, Ari Meirov. We are continuing our team-by-team previews ahead of the 2025 NFL season. Make sure you are subscribed right here on YouTube so you don't miss anything. And we are on to the Tennessee Titans. And joining me today, he covers the team for ESPN, does an outstanding job all year long covering this team. It is Turron Davenport. Turron, thanks so much for doing this. How's everything going?
Hey, man, everything is good. I always say I woke up, so I won, man. You never have a bad day. So,
I love that perspective, and you are 100% right. It's the right answer. It's the perfect answer, and everybody should live like that. And, you cover this team, the Tennessee Titans, and I'll be outright with you. I mean, nationally, there is really not much discussion about
yeah.
them. The NFL gave them 0 primetime games, even though they have a young quarterback who looks to be pretty fun. So I'm going to ask you a general question to start off with this. What is the overall vibes right now with this team, with this organization at training camp as we get closer to the season?
Yeah, I mean, the overall vibes are good ones. Everybody is excited about having Cameron Ward in the building. And then also, there's a big thing about, stability and also just the continuity for the quarterback. So, in other words, the guys are really trying to rally for Brian Callahan. Obviously, last year was what it was, but they believe overall that they could turn things around and they want to keep Callahan as the coach, and they're going to do everything they can to do that.
Before I get to the players and this team, and of course the quarterback, I do want to ask you about the overall dynamic of this organization because you mentioned stability, but doesn't feel like everybody necessarily is on the same page. What I mean by that is Chad Brinker got there in 2023, Brian Callahan in 2024, Mike Borgonzi in 2025. Is that a weird dynamic, or is this the crew that they wanted, but it just fell that way?
Yeah, it's a very weird dynamic because you look before including this past move, at Rand Carthon being fired, it's 3 consecutive years that you've seen a very, very important person within the organization get fired. So that is the stability. And Cameron Ward himself even said when I asked him about, stability and how important it is for him as a quarterback, he even said like that's something this organization hasn't had. So if a rookie quarterback coming in knows it, rest assured, it's definitely something that isn't right, so to speak. But from what I've gathered, they seem to be pretty well aligned, and there's a uniform understanding that this is a process and that draft, develop, retain approach. It requires patience, and that patience has to extend to the head coach as long as it's not a complete disaster.
Well, you look at the entire organization, a lot of people coming in. The front office had a bunch of veteran voices coming in as well. Besides from Mike Borgonzi, Dave Ziegler is there.
Yeah.
Reggie McKenzie is now there. So there's a lot of people coming in, and it does feel like everybody is now aligned after the turmoil that has been there the last couple of years. And the first gigantic decision, I guess one of the big decisions was that number one overall pick. Before I ask you about him, I've noticed you've already done this a couple times. I've noticed in your tweets as well. Does he want to be known as Cameron Ward, or is everyone saying Cam Ward and that's wrong?
Yeah, that's the interesting part of it. So when I first met his parents, Patricia and Calvin Ward, Patricia, his mom, was very not adamant, but she wanted him to be called Cameron. And, nevertheless, mom knows best. That's what I've always been taught. So I followed along with that. But it's funny you mentioned that because I talked to them yesterday because they're here in Atlanta or Flowery Branch for the joint practices. And they said it's okay to say Cam. So at this point, I guess it's like you want to call him Cam, call him Cam. You want to call him Cameron, call him Cameron. I may just going forward just say Ward and just to avoid all that, right?
I've been seeing all the posts and you've been using Cameron, so I was like, we're really not paying attention to this guy. Are we to that extent not realizing the way he wants his name to be called? Okay, so we got that down. Let me just ask you about him so far, because again, not much discussion. I think from all the number one overall pick quarterbacks, nobody has been talked about less. And I think, of course,
Yeah.
the fact that there was a trade at number two, maybe that affected it. The fact that there was a different quarterback in Shador, maybe that affected it. But You've seen him every single day since he got there. What are the early impressions of Cam Ward through camp, the poise, the accuracy, commanding the huddle, being a leader? Like, what have you seen from him?
Yeah, all of those things actually. I think it's pretty cool just seeing the way I know people don't make too much about trash talk, but it's interesting the way he just fit right in, right? And Jeffrey Simmons came out in minicamp and was talking, and he was talking right back to him. You've heard the story, Ari, where Brian Callahan was calling a play, and he's talking trash to Simmons while Callahan is calling the play, and he just turned and he spit the play out in the huddle, then proceeded to drop a bomb to Calvin Ridley on a post route. So I think the main thing, coolness, calmness, and confidence. Those are the three things for Ward. I think that really show, and it's like he could make a mistake and he's going to turn around and the next play go right back at it. I think that's a good sign. Still unproven, so I'm not going to say he's a good quarterback already, but I think the seeds have been planted. And then you also look at the arm angles. There are multiple times where I've seen him sidearm and different, change his arm angle to be able to get it around a defender on an RPO or any of those types of quick hitting plays.
Have you felt the players resonating to him? Because like Jordan Love did this article in the Tribune recently, and he was like, when I got to the NFL, the honor just leading all these men is like a big deal. Like, how am I supposed to do that? And I got to watch Aaron Rodgers. It feels like Cam is able to do it. Have you seen that with all these players? You mentioned Jeffrey Simmons before. Like, has he been the leader of men and just coming as if he's
Yeah.
been there, done that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's on Twitter. There's a picture of everybody is on one knee and he's standing up and he's like this. And I don't know what he was saying, but I mean, that in itself is a good example. I mentioned the trash talk with Jeffrey Simmons. JC Latham, the second year offensive lineman, he got really excited during mini camp because in between series, Jeff got a little too close to them and Ward headbutted him. He's like, man, my quarterback, he headbutted. He had enough, like, it just the genuine excitement that he had. You got that, but then also you look at um, there was a touchdown that they scored during one of the team periods, and you got Tony Pollard, a longtime veteran, doing the celebration, right? And then they had a pick six, and Arden Key is doing it back to him. Like anytime, you know what they say about imitation, it's a sign of appreciation. Yeah, you know what I mean. And so the defense doing that to get back at him. I mean, it just shows. I think he's definitely taken a hold of this team and is clearly a leader. I'll be surprised if he doesn't have the C on his shirt, as one of the captains.
I think it's probably a foregone conclusion by now. Let me ask you about the guys who are around him. And I'm going to start with the wide receiver corps. The other day, he said that this is a top five receiver corps in the NFL. Confident answer there by him. But what have you seen from those guys? Calvin Ridley is the leader. Tyler Lockett is a bit of the veteran. Van Jefferson is a journeyman guy. You have a couple of rookie draft picks. You have his college buddy and Xavier Restrepo. Like, what is this group right now?
Yeah, well, I'll say this, and I've told Ridley himself, like to his face, I said, man, you're the most urgent receiver I've ever watched practice. Literally every snap is like his last. And I just love the energy that he practices with and the way he goes about practice. And it rubs off on the younger guys. In fact, Alec Eiermanner told me that he's like, how could I take a playoff or not run a rep to my fullest when I got a guy like Calvin Ridley running everyone like it's his last? And that's a fact, right? So I think, Ridley's going to be solid. Lockett, we'll see. I mean, he still has some juice. He's a guy that could work in the slot, and he's always going to have that craftiness and be able to get open. So you have that. Jefferson, we'll also see what happens there. I mean, he has one good year in his career. The rest have been just like satisfactory ones. He remains a really good route runner. He'll probably end up having the X job and Ridley at Z, Lockett at slot. But then also the younger guys. I mentioned Iron Manor, but Chimere DK, watch out for him. And he's a guy that I could see, he ran that deep over route really well at Florida. And Cam loves to throw that route. So, I think they'll be able to connect, and especially with that speed coming out of the slot, he's going to outrun most corners. So that should be a good opportunity to hit some big plays. You got them. Gunnar Helm and Chiga Campo at tight end. Helm has had a very good camp, and he's someone that pushed himself up to the number 2 tight end spot. At least that's where he is on the unofficial depth chart. So those are some guys. I'm trying to remember who you mentioned. Restrepo. Um, I don't know that he makes the roster. He's a very good college player. I think he's even a solid pro receiver, but it's a numbers game, and I don't think that he's going to make it because you got 2 guys in Bryce Oliver, who is the all-time leading receiver at Youngstown State. He literally makes a play a day. You know what I mean? Every time he's out on the field, he makes a play, and you're like, yeah, that guy's making the roster. And James Prochet as well. These guys they kind of pushed out any extra spots. Even though Traylon Burks got hurt and he's, off the team, those guys took hold of the spots.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna ask you about Restrepo just because Cam Ward has been somebody who has been just talking about him a lot. I mean, I've heard from people in the organization that he told some people draft this guy, and they were like, "We'll get
He
it. Don't
did,
worry about it."
yeah.
So, I was gonna ask you, is there any sort of influence of just getting him a practice squad spot just because Cam wants him on the team? Is that a possibility, I guess?
I don't even think it's Cam wanting him on the team that'll get him a practice squad. Restrepo, like, he's earned that. I firmly believe that. Now, he only played 11 snaps against the Bucks in the preseason opener, but if you look at um, minicamp, beginning of training camp, like, he has somewhat of a presence. The guy could do multiple things. I think he's going to be fine. He's a guy that you could definitely use on the practice squad. Hey, you're going against uh, a team with a good slot receiver. Like, you want him to go ahead and give you the looks.
But I ask you about the offensive line, which Mike Berganzi and Chad Brinker put a big emphasis on this offseason. A lot of money paid to Dan Moore. JC Latham now goes to right tackle. Kevin Zeidler, back end of his career, but now he's on this team. You have Peter Skoronsky, former first-round pick. Lloyd Cushenberry, former big free agent signing. How is that 5 gelling right now in front of Cam Ward?
Yeah, well, Lloyd Cushenberry just came back from PUP. He didn't take part in any of the team period during the joint practices with the Falcons this past week. But I think you still see just the potential with him because he's a guy that, you know, you're not going to bull rush him. He's not going to let the pocket be collapsed. So you have that. But let's talk about Dan Moore Jr. And one of the things is, in talking to one of the executives there with the Titans, he's like, yeah, people are going to say we overpaid for Dan Moore Jr., but it's just like real estate, right? Like, if you want to live in a nice neighborhood, you're going to have to pay a little bit more to live in that neighborhood. And it's just the same if you want even a good to solid offensive lineman, like, you want to have to pay. And that's what happened there. I always look at that as like a buy one, get one free, right? Because, the right tackle position was just like, to say it like Charles Barkley, it was terrible. You know what I mean? And they allowed 29 sacks from that position. That was the worst in the league. J.C. Latham was solid at left tackle, but he's probably going to be a better right tackle. Whatever he does, he's an upgrade from last year. So you're upgrading right tackle, probably upgrading left tackle with one move. And that, to me, kind of justifies paying the money for a guy who a lot of people will say is overpriced.
What about the guard positions there with Peter Skoronsky and Kevin Zeidler? I mean, how has Skoronsky looked so far since he was a first round pick a couple of years ago? Like, where is the direction of his career right now? And then Kevin Zeidler just being the veteran of this group, how is he looking?
Yeah, I just did a one-on-one with Zeitler at Falcons joint practices, and I think he's or excuse me, with Skoronsky. Um, he's going to be fine. Like, he had a very strong end to last year, and he's just going to build on that. The big thing for him was just getting the feet to speed up a little bit, and that's seems to have happened. So you have that, and Zeitler he's an outstanding veteran. And a quick story with Zeitler, how I think he's going to help. J.C. Latham and Zeitler on the right side, they saw like a stunt, and Latham had never seen it before, didn't know exactly what to do. So Zeitler pulled him aside and talked to him. And Latham went into detail on this on my buddy Buck Risen's show on Titans Radio. And he talked about how Zeitler pulled him aside. He told him, this is this in this situation. This is what's going to happen. I need you to tell me this. This is going to be our code to, and just having that veteran to be able to walk you through an experience that you've never seen before. I think that's major. And I really like that. This is an example of just not even on the field, just here being able to help a rookie player, not a rookie, but a younger player.
One of those low key additions that happened this offseason, which nobody really talked about, but I think could go a long way for this team and organization, especially for all those young guys on that team. Let me go over to the defense right now. And I think one of the stories from last year that nobody talked about was the job that Denard Wilson did with that defense. I mean, everybody was trying to trash the entire team, but the defense was not bad. I mean, let's just say it like that. Overall, like, what have you seen from this defense going into year 2 with Denard?
Yeah, well, to your point, they had to literally be firemen, right? Because there were so many fires they had to run into and put out. I mean, look at the Lions game. I mean, yeah, they gave up a lot of points, but what's going to happen when your average starting position is your own 30 to 40-yard line? You know what I mean? So you got that. But I think the defense, the big thing, they have to, well, they're married together, the pass rush and coverage, right? The back end without Sneed, uh, their depth at corner is not good. That's why I'm still confused why they didn't draft Quincy Riley out of Louisville, but that's a different conversation. Their depth isn't good. And then you look at the pass rush, this team doesn't have a single pass rusher that has double-digit sacks. Simmons came close, 8.5 back in 2021, but they have to figure out a way to get after the quarterback. Now, they'll pressure the quarterback, but they just don't seem to be able to bring him down, so they're working to have a more coordinated pass rush, collapse the pocket and have the guys not getting too deep on the outside and just kind of corral the quarterback. So we'll see how that works. It sounds good, but I think we need to see some results.
I want to ask you about a couple of particular players on that defense. You mentioned him a second ago. L'Jarius Sneed was a pretty big addition last year, previous GM, but still, is he still injured? Like, what is the story with him with all the money that they gave him?
Yeah, so the joint practices at Flowery Branch with the Falcons, Sneed did some work inside. He is walking with no hiccup or anything like that. He had the knee cleaned up in May. So we're kind of dealing with two injuries when you look at Sneed. Um, he had the quad injury that just got worse and worse. And then he had the knee scope, or cleaned rather. So um, they are looking to have him back, but the results that I continue to get are day to day. So we'll see what happens there. But I do know that he's working. We've seen him working multiple times during practice.
When it comes to just the defense overall, I mean, we all know about Jeffrey Simmons. He's the superstar of team, basically. But who are some of the other potential cornerstone players that this team could work with moving forward? I mean, who would that be? Is that maybe Tavondre Sweat? Like, who are some of the guys who, all right, I could see this guy being here 5 years from now?
T Sweat, they call him Meatloaf. I think he just had his tonsils removed. He came back to the team during the Falcons joint practices, but you know, he is someone I don't know that you're going to get the big time sacks, but just because he has a personality, even though he's a run stuffer, I think he can get some, that Tony Siragusa type of love, where it's like a big guy with swagger, athleticism. Yeah, you gotta like him. So I will say him, but I give you two. Well, actually, let me start with this guy because Jeremy Fowler, he does the top 10, and Amani Hooker not being in the top 10 at the safety position to me is a crime, right? Hooker is so rangy. He could come up and match up with most tight ends. He's very solid tackler. I told him when he came into the league, I said, you remind me of Malcolm Jenkins, and he smiled when I said that, but I mean, that was the truth. So he is somebody that I think can be a cornerstone. Um, will go to the next level. Cody Barton, I think, is a guy that you got to watch out for. He's someone that he'll wear the green dot, but it's just the way that he's able to make sure the young linebackers, James Williams and Cedric Gray, when they're in with him, they say he's like a coach on the field. And Barton is a pretty good athlete, former safety, so you got that. So those are two guys. I did say three, so I got to go to Jarvis Brownlee Jr. And he's like that X-ray. You know, they show the X-ray and you see the pit bull or the bulldog in right in there in the heart. You know, that's him. And he's a solid cover corner. He has to stop grabbing as much, but as he continues to establish a reputation as a good cover guy, they'll start to not call that as much. But those are three that I could think of.
I love the Cody Barton shout out just because he is somebody. I'll give you a fun story. When he was in Seattle, still trying to find his way, I had a brief conversation with him, or maybe you could bring this up to him. He'll mention to you that the book Atomic Habits is something that he read and it changed his life and his perspective on how to do things. And it basically gave him a belief that he really could make it in the NFL. So
Hmm.
next time you speak to him, just bring that up. But
Atomic Habits.
yes, yes, it is. It's actually behind me also. I got it because of him. It actually really is a good book. So, he is a player who has really carved a nice career for himself, and now could be a big part of this Titans team moving forward this year. Let me just ask you a couple more things before I wrap up. What is a realistic step forward for the Titans in 2025 that we could go away and say, you know what, I could see this team having a path over here moving forward? Like, what would that be?
I would say 5 to 6 wins. You know, if they get more than 6 wins, like I'm gonna look around and make sure that, you know, that it's true. I mean, look, the checks cash either way, so like I'm not rooting for them to do it, but I mean, if they get 6 wins, like I'll be very surprised for it.
Gotcha. And then in terms of just back to the quarterback quickly with Cameron Ward, when it comes to him, what would be the I guess the good thing for the organization to see out of him? I mean, we're not talking about a CJ Stroud type of a year, but for the organization, what do they want to see out of him?
You know, honestly, I think a season very similar to Caleb Williams last year. But just, you know, a season in which he shows, hey, I could get them in and out of the huddle effectively. I could not turn the ball over frequently. And I could make sure that, hey, if we lose games, it's not going to be because of me directly. And we know that that was an issue last year with Will Levis. There were 2 to 3 games where it's like, you never like to put it on one player on one play, but if you wouldn't have done this, you know what I mean? So I think that's really the thing, just to show signs of growth and signs of belonging in the league.
Well, week one versus Denver in Denver will be here soon enough. The last thing I want to ask you here, Turan, and this is the question to ask everybody who comes on the show. This is the NFL Spotlight Show. Every single Tuesday, we bring in somebody from the NFL who deserves more recognition. It could be a player, a coach, an executive. I want to ask you from the Titans organization, who is somebody that maybe we should target to get on the show, somebody who deserves more love?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for me. As soon as you said that, the name came right to mind, and that's Chick Egiasi. Chick, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name. I'm pretty sure it's Egiasi, but he is the guy, and he's someone like he does everything for the team. I mean, there are times he doesn't do it now, but during practice, you know, he's the guy to DJ. You know, he's the one, you know, playing the music to get everybody hyped, and he's just a bright spot in the building. Like he's someone, his spirit is always high. He uplifts you. He does a lot of stuff as far as like player development is concerned. Um, he's awesome. Any of the guys need something, like he'll make sure he sets them up and gives them a good lead into whatever situation they want to do. So Chick Egiasi, that's the guy for me. And he always shows love every time you see him.
Football is the ultimate team sport. There's people all over a building that help push everyone in the right direction to go to where they want to be. And a lot of people do not get that love they deserve. So
Wow.
we will take a look at that. And before I do let you go, Tehran, I'm a Mets fan. I know you're a Mets fan. Can I just get some help over here? What's going on with us?
Yeah. Uh Bad streak, man. A bad streak. Bunch of games behind the Phillies. Like I'm a Mets fan originally from New York, who lived in Philly and around Philly most of my life. So it's a double whammy when they're behind the Phillies, but it is what it is. They got some young guys that they'll call up a little bit later. Keep an eye on some of those that they're going to call up. So we'll see.
I hope we turn it around. This is a momentum sport. I mean, if it happens now, you never know what it could be if they do make it to the posting, which is great for me to say. I thought it was a slam dunk to make it, but we'll see what ends up happening here in the stretch run. But Turron, I want to thank you for coming out of here previewing the 2025 Tennessee Titans. Everyone could catch your work over at ESPN, follow you on all the social media platforms, and keep up the great work because you are tremendous at what you do.
Thanks, man. As are you. And together we could say, let's go Mets.